Pandemic has highlighted a number of supply chain issues, from vaccines to cleaning supplies to food, in particular food, I think. Jack Bobo joins me now to discuss food security during the pandemic. He's the CEO of Futurity. It's a consulting company on food and agricultural trends. Jack, food security or food insecurity, of course, is not new. The UN has been banging on about this for at least the last 10 years, probably a bit longer. Has it been made worse, though, by the COVID pandemic, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. We have about 160 million people who have been driven into hunger as a result of this, and that's on top of the 690 million people who were going to bed hungry before COVID.
And I just want to be clear, in your view, is this reduced income and disrupted supply chains, for example?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. The supply chains, getting seeds to farmers, farmers being able to get the food that they harvest to the markets, people being able to get into the markets. So at each point in the food supply chain, those disruptions have led to greater and greater hunger.
And here in the United States, difficulty employing people so that those supply chains are breaking down. Is that part of it?
Yeah, in the United States, there are definitely people that are suffering as well. And, you have workers who are just not comfortable going back into the restaurants today. And so there's a desperate need to find people to work and service jobs.
So are there country by country differences when it comes to this kind of food insecurity?
Well, in terms of absolute numbers, the places that have been hardest hit by COVID is really countries in Africa. So whether it's Ethiopia, Nigeria, Angola, and other places have had the vast majority of people that have increased levels of hunger as a direct result of COVID.
Is it made worse by lockdown? So if you have a lockdown in a city, is that exacerbating the problem on top of the problem that we've been talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's very unfortunate when you have a lockdown, people have difficulty accessing food, and the supply chain can get the food to them. And so, the lockdown just dramatically increases hunger, people that are, suffering from malnutrition. And, it's not the same in the United States or Europe as it is in, many parts of the world where there's, real hunger of people just not having nearly enough food every day. And that can lead to long-term health issues for children growing up.
So I want to be clear, this is on top of conflict and climate change and pests. This is something which is being added to the issue of food insecurity for many.
Yeah, so put it in scale. 5 years ago, there were about 640 million people who were going to bed hungry. We had 5 years of actual increases. So by 2019, there were about 690 million people. So that's a 50 million person increase in hunger over the course of 5 years because of things like climate change, crisis, civil wars, and other things. And yet in a single year, that's gone up 160 million people. So, we actually have lost 2 decades of ground in the fight against hunger. When I started working on food security 20 years ago, we talked about 850 million people going to bed hungry. And, we're reaching those same numbers today as a result of COVID.
And this issue is likely to persist through 2021, 22, maybe even 23. What are the short-term solution priorities, do you think, for governments?
Well, in many countries, the World Bank and others are just trying to make sure that farmers in developing countries have access to seeds so that they can be planting this year, so that we don't have a further crisis 6 months from now. But then there's also just making sure that people are vaccinated so that the supply chain itself can begin to function again. And so you're absolutely right that it's going to be a year or two before many of those things begin to function the way they were in the past, and then we have to begin to reduce that hunger. That's just keeping things from getting worse.
Jack Bobo of Futurity, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.